The voice of college football giving you a voice here on a Monday afternoon. Welcome to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We are striking up the live stream at 1 o'clock Eastern time on a Monday to provide you with a chance to join the live chat room, which, hey, I've been told by good sources that it's the best live college football chat room anywhere. And I have even suggested that you give yourself a name. But the chat room is, of course, open. I'm not necessarily going to refer to the chat room often during this next 45 minutes. The intent of this was to run through viewer comments. So I'm running through the viewer comments that stand out to me over the past week or 2 weeks, and I'm going to respond. I should do this on a more regular basis, but I believe that you guys know from tracking the comments that I get to as many as possible without compromising the delivery of the content to you in the live streams and everything we do here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Coming across us for the first time, or maybe you've watched for a few weeks and have not taken part, please do. Please comment to the videos. Please comment in the live chat. You'll find a number of huge, hardcore college football fans from other fan bases that you'll have a good time interacting with. Maybe you'll get pissed off sometimes and not necessarily have a great time each and every time, but it will be an emotional, engaging time. And maybe you can teach somebody something. Maybe you can teach me something. Maybe you can learn from someone else. All right, let's get through the comments here. And I really should have been more awake for this, but we're going to make our way through it here and go through the comments. The best way possibly to do this would be for me to record this and then do some post-production in which I would take the comments and post them on the screen. But there are 40 bowl games that I need to get to. Hopefully you're checking out those videos. We have previewed Notre Dame, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, the Penn State, Kentucky matchup in the Citrus Bowl, and we will get to so many more. This afternoon, we're talking to Savannah Lee Richardson from Bulldog Illustrated to get the Georgia side of the Sugar Bowl, and much more to get to later this week with day one of bowl play, weekend one, coming up on Saturday with 5 bowl games. All right, let's get to it. We've got Jack Gildia making the comment 35 minutes ago. Good analysis. He's talking about Notre Dame, Clemson. However, Notre Dame will beat Clemson because Notre Dame is hungrier. Jack, please find the metric on that. Please break down the analysis and the logic behind that statement and send it my way. I'm guessing that you mean that Clemson goes to the college football playoff every year. Therefore, they're not hungry. This particular class, though, of Clemson players, aside from the seniors, consider that in 2016, that class won the national championship. In 2017, they obviously came up short. So there are teams that win multiple championships, and I'm not going to try to rate. That's something that I don't do. I have a hard time trying to determine motivation in games, especially in championship settings. This is a championship game of sorts. It's a playoff game, elimination game to get to the national championship game. Therefore, the motivation is difficult for me to peg. I would think that the motivation would be through the roof for both teams. All right. David Gainey, the big least, I don't know what that is sad. I believe he's talking about the SEC East. Kentucky is just that bad. Penn State should win this. Kentucky got lucky and won a few they shouldn't have. And that probably is true. I don't know if they were necessarily lucky. A few calls, a few plays could have gone the other way, and they could have lost. They beat Vanderbilt 14-7, Mizzou on the final play of the game with no time on the clock. Virtually no time on the clock when they ran the play after a penalty defensively to win 15-14. We know the Kentucky story. We have talked Kentucky football all year. All right. Calling us Clemson homers, a number of people. So please get this when you watch the videos. I will say it's a Clemson Notre Dame preview. And the titles, I try to be as descriptive and specific as possible, but understand that if Clemson is playing Florida State that week, And we are truly talking about the game. We are talking about Clemson, Florida State, but I've got a Clemson blogger on, a Clemson guest, writer, broadcaster. We're mostly going to focus on Clemson, and we're going to look at Florida State, but it's going to be slanted toward Clemson, but it is still a game preview of Clemson and Florida State. Therefore, I mark it as a game preview. Now, if Clemson just happens to be playing a Furman that week, and we're really not talking about the Furman game, I'm not going to list it as a Clemson Furman preview. It's Clemson football talk, and it's Clemson coaching staff talk and quarterback talk. It's a Clemson video solely talking about Clemson football, and they just happen to be playing Furman this week, and we make 3 comments about Furman. It's not a Furman preview. That's what I've done here. Ryan Cantor from Shaking the Southland on SB Nation joined me the other day. We talked Clemson football in preparation for Notre Dame, but we very much talked Notre Dame almost as much as Clemson. Not quite as much, but almost as much as Clemson, and broke down the metrics comparing the two teams. It was a true Clemson Notre Dame preview. We are not Clemson homers. He's a Clemson homer. He's a Clemson guy. I am neutral on the matter, and we will do our best to balance it out with Notre Dame. We cannot be 50-50 perfect all the time. All right. All right. We got Ray Wing basically just letting us know that the team that wins will have the most points, and he repeats that about 18 times. Go Irish and be happy everyone sees you as the underdog. The victory will be that much sweeter. Sympathy for the Devil 17. 11 is a crazy line to me, talking Notre Dame, Clemson. This will be a one-possession game late for either team. I will have my prediction as we get closer to game time. All right. Darren McCardle. And every time I see a new name, either in the live chat or a new name and handle in the comments, it does my heart good. So welcome to Mark Rogers TV, Darren. I appreciate you commenting on the Kentucky Penn State video, the big preview of the Citrus Bowl that we had with Tim Aiden from Black Shoe Diaries. Darren says, why don't they do the bowls like the playoffs? For example, Florida, Michigan, where Florida will get killed in the bowl and won't be a game worth watching unless you like a game where the score is 40-3. Do not get me wrong. I want Florida to play Michigan, but when it comes down to it, UCF can't play in the playoffs because they are afraid of UCF losing too big against the team they play. Yet Florida will end up losing big because they allow them in the bowl they are going to play in. Other bowls are the same, where they contradict the playoffs when it comes to teams not matched up correctly. All right. The bowl system and the playoff system are two entirely different systems, of course, as Darren points out here. I don't necessarily agree or think it would be that beneficial to do it, as he states here. So I'm guessing that after the first 4 teams that make the college football playoffs, he would like to just basically seed the teams or go by the rankings and just have those teams play. So Ohio State would play Georgia 5 and 6. You take Ohio State out of the Rose Bowl or Georgia out of the Sugar Bowl. Let's understand that there are long-standing ties of conferences being affiliated and participating in specific bowl games. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 in the Rose, the SEC and the Sugar in particular. And it's a playoff game this year, but in other years, the Big 12 and the Orange Bowl. He would like to do away with that and just see better matchups based on rankings. So I can understand that to a certain extent. I don't necessarily, I understand it from a competitive standpoint that he thinks that by matching teams up based on rankings, yes, Ohio State and Georgia would appear to be a better matchup on paper than Georgia and Texas, where Georgia is a decided favorite and Ohio State is less than, but still a decided favorite against Washington. The comment about UCF, though, they have not protected UCF. The bowl system has not protected UCF. The bowl selection, the playoff selection committee has not selected UCF because they don't believe that they've played the schedule to earn the right into the playoff. We've argued that umpteen times in different venues. But let's understand that I don't believe the playoff selection committee has protected UCF. They just do not believe them to be one of the 4 best, and that's pretty obvious based on schedule. All right. Now, the Bulls protecting UCF. The Bulls are there to provide an entertainment. The Bulls are there to provide for themselves money. They are looking to make the most money possible. Therefore, they're looking for the most attractive matchup that they can come up with. Now, most of us, me included, would like to have seen UCF play Florida for obvious reasons. It puts Florida under the gun as the big school, one of the big three in Florida against UCF that's won 25 consecutive games. And who's going to win this game? Is UCF going to beat an SEC power for the second consecutive year in that situation? And especially a team from its own state that's supposed to be the big brother type? That would be fascinating. Or what we got, though, was UCF taking on LSU, which is still an intriguing matchup to me, taking on a similar team to what we saw them play in Auburn last year and winning. So if UCF wins against a second or third best team in the SEC again, that's saying quite a bit. LSU and Michigan would have been a nice matchup. So I would have been better with UCF Florida because of the obvious storylines there. And then LSU and Michigan, I don't know the last time LSU and Michigan played. I remember basically who's played everybody in the last 40 years, and I don't recall any Michigan LSU games, especially in postseason play. They have not occurred. So Michigan LSU would have been fascinating on one hand, just seeing two brand names, two big-time powers facing off, and then UCF and Florida. That should have been the matchup. If you go through the bowl system and you go through the selection process, you will see why it played out the way it did. But the Bulls are strictly there to make money. So they want the best TV ratings. Number one, that's most important. Number two, they want people to travel. So they want large fan bases. And typically those two are linked together. All right. Paul, if Texas has trouble scoring on Oklahoma, if they were stopped more than once against Oklahoma, Georgia's going to destroy them. Georgia is the second best team in the country right now. Eye test and stats. Huge political snub, in my opinion, by the College Football Playoff Committee. That is not a political snub. Believe me, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is not snubbing a team out of the SEC politically. They probably would like to avoid, many of them, maybe the entire committee would like to avoid matching up two teams that just played. Understood. I don't think that they avoided Georgia. It wasn't like Georgia was the obvious selection and they bypassed Georgia even to get to a conference champion. Not at all. If anything, they gave Georgia the consideration over Ohio State and UCF. This game might be the blowout of the year because I think Georgia will want to make a statement and try to score 60 to 70 points, which I believe they have never tried to do once the win is in hand. I cannot see Georgia scoring 60 or 70 points against Texas. I will have my prediction on that game as we get closer, of course. Cliff Payne. He said he thinks Georgia's on par with Oklahoma. I don't know who that was. I believe that was our guy, Steve Helwick, with the University of Texas. I did not say that. Georgia's on par with Oklahoma. Prepare for a rude awakening. Yes, Georgia's a much better team. Decidedly better. I shouldn't say much better, meaning they beat Oklahoma by 20 points. But they're better than Oklahoma. Green Man, I think it will be a good game, meaning Penn State and Kentucky, because they both want to prove they are better than their record and want to go out on a high note. The Yawn Bowl, Texas, Georgia, Ray 7337. All right, we've got PTOOT. And again, almost everybody who's commenting in the last 10 hours is new to Mark Rogers TV, as long as I know, as far as I know, in regards to never commenting. So it's great to have all the new people aboard. PTOOT says it will come down, meaning Notre Dame and Clemson, to Notre Dame's offensive line, giving Book time to pick apart Clemson's pass defense. And he goes on from there. So these comments to the videos I think are more so for you guys to comment with each other and to debate and discuss with each other. I get to as many as possible, but that's becoming fewer and fewer and fewer because of the massive comments, which is a good thing. So I think this is more so, and I try to pick up the comments that are coming from people that I've not heard from before, or if some of you old timers have commented like 5 times, I don't want to ignore you. So I'll try to pick out the best or the most interesting comment and get back to that one. But I think it's a way for, unless it's directed right at me to say, Mark, you screwed this up. Mark, you're this, you're that. I'll respond directly to that. But otherwise, this is obviously a forum for you guys to mix it up. There I hear that Clemson's hungry, and then somebody else says that Notre Dame is hungry. Rose Ray says Notre Dame's very hungry. Clemson is not. Mr. Tron says Clemson is hungry to avenge that Sugar Bowl loss from last year. I can believe both. I would hope they're all hungry to win a national championship. If anybody out of these 4 teams is not motivated and hungry to win a national championship, and I'm saying if, I'm not saying that they're not, but the obvious choice would be Alabama. For That's What's Up, he is sick to think that Ohio State would be a favorite against Notre Dame. Yes, Buckeye fans, it's difficult to take that you were left out of the playoff. It's just a difficult system. The committee made the choice that most people believe was the best choice, and based on the Ohio State loss to Purdue, it most likely was the best choice based on resume. It was the tiebreaker, but UCF should be given a shot. Ohio State should be in the playoff. To make it clear, Washington should be in a playoff. Otherwise, we shouldn't have conferences. Slow boat sailing. And this must be a good thing that I'm doing thumbnails now. I'm doing better thumbnails, actually produced thumbnails. I can thank my son for that. Hope you enjoy. Peter Young. All the players who skip the bowl games are trash for doing so. They should owe the university the entire cost of their scholarship. That's a horrible point you make to start, Peter, but your closing line has a little bit of merit to it, not in total. So these players are being compensated with a scholarship that is worth $100,000, $150,000 plus the meal money, plus. So I have always been an advocate that they are being compensated well for playing. I don't believe that they need to be paid to play. I do think that they should be able to benefit and take advantage of their celebrity by either memorabilia, signing autographs, or their likeness should be part of the compensation and should be funneled and handled and processed through the school, so we don't have any shady characters taking care of that. So what Peter's saying here is that these guys are trash for protecting themselves against injury for the NFL draft. I do not believe that. I do not believe that. I believe that these players have the right to sit out. And when this first started happening, it generally involved injury, that a player who may have gutted it out against a rival or in a key conference game is not doing so in a game that he considers to be an exhibition in which his team cannot win a championship. It's a bowl game, and thought, okay, I've got a bad knee. I would normally play on this knee. I've been playing on it, but I'm going to sit out. That's understandable, even though he's downgrading the bowl game. Okay, now we just have players just flat out saying, I'm preparing for the NFL draft. I'm foregoing this game. The first thing I don't want to see is that particular player on the sideline with their team. They have removed themselves from the game. They are not injured. There is no other reasonable reason in which they have removed themselves other than to say, I am now a professional. Therefore, they shouldn't be on the sideline rooting their team on, interacting with their team. I would consider that most likely, and I might be wrong in certain situations, to be a distraction to the team. Use the facility. Don't interact with your teammates during their preparation, their official preparation, their buddies. Sure, you're going to interact. You have personal relationships, but stay away from the football facility while the team's there officially practicing. And certainly during the bowl games, we should not see players who have held out of the bowl games standing on the sidelines, interacting with their teams. No way, shape, or form. That drove me nuts to see in particular. And maybe this was just the first of many examples in the Las Vegas Bowl with Oregon. And I think it was Royce Freeman who was on the sideline for Oregon. You know, you have removed yourself. You're not injured. You have removed yourself from the team. Therefore, you are not on the team anymore. All right. But they're not trash. They are making a business and professional decision. Okay, second point here by Peter. They should owe the university the entire cost of their scholarship. Okay, well, that's a bit skewed. That's a bit strong. That's a bit over the top and overboard. Okay, I do think that he's onto something, that there should be something owed, because the agreement is that I receive a scholarship and all the benefits that come with that. There are a number of benefits that come with that. But I have received a scholarship and an education from the school to play football. I am fully capable of playing football. I still have eligibility. There is one game left in the season for my team in this junior or senior season. Therefore, there should be some prorated scholarship return on that. I would think that the school would say, okay, you played X number of games during your career. You missed X number of games, and I'm not talking about injury, but you missed this one game. Therefore, we are going to dock you X number of dollars, your scholarship. And maybe they're not going to care at that point, but there should be some condition put into play because the school is not receiving their fair agreement from the player. And maybe this needs to go to the point of the players who leave early for the NFL draft. And I don't know how that's handled. For you hear all the time about players going to the NFL early, playing a junior season in college, leaving early for the NFL, still having eligibility in college, still not receiving their degree. And then maybe 5, 10, 15 years later, they go back to the school. I am thinking that they have received their scholarship in full and that they are still benefiting from being able to complete classes and their degree based on the original scholarship agreement. I would think that the school should say, you played for us 3 years. We gave you a 4-year scholarship. You are going to have to compensate us for the final year. That's what I would do. I doubt that that's happening. Taryn Bell again is saying we get a Clemson guy to compare the teams. Okay, he was just going with the metrics. The metrics don't lie. He was just running down the stats. And yes, he is a Clemson guy. And yes, we cover Notre Dame just as much as Clemson. So we will get there. Thank you. Mark Marcus, who are you guys? Where's the Notre Dame guy in this? Notre Dame is going to win. You guys are going to eat crow. I didn't hear anyone make a prediction in that video, Mark. Thanks for the comment. A lot of new people. I hope you enjoy. Even if you disagree with my comments or my predictions or my take or perspective on a particular subject or team or topic, I think you will agree that if you stop by, check in, subscribe, keep it locked in for the bowl season, that we provide the very best discussion, debate, and analysis in college football. Johnny Bays, love the Cotton Bowl and hate the Orange Bowl. Okay. Johnny Bays, go Irish, beat Clemson. Johnny Bays, I think Notre Dame accepted Rose Bowl bids, and that was it. Yes, there was a gap in Notre Dame bowl history from 1925 to 1970. They would only accept a Rose Bowl bid, and of course, the Rose Bowl was locked in at that point for much of that time between the Big Ten and the Pac 8, 10, 12. Oh boy, Johnny Bays, come on. NFL playoffs are objective? Question mark. Subjective. Better division, harder way in. Based on your criteria, Johnny, you realize that there would never be a subjective way to reach the playoffs in any sport because we cannot accurately predict before the season starts who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. Therefore, the schedule cannot be built in such a way to make the playing field exactly even. But there's a format that makes sense, and there is division play. There is a structure to it that determines what the schedule is going to be, that is fair, and that has been agreed upon by everyone involved, correct? So, and it's objective. It's not based on people's opinion. That's what objectivity means versus subjectivity. Black and white numbers and metrics are objective. People's opinion, subjective, even if they say that they're using metrics and stats. And I believe the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is, but there's still bias there. And it's still a process that doesn't work because there's not enough spots for the number of conferences. Okay, the NFL playoffs, though I would structure the college football playoffs and the scheduling different. And I have to explain this a number of times because people, when they hear my scheduling system, they then liken it to the NFL. The NFL is trying to create parity. So they give their best teams the most difficult schedules, just like they give them the most difficult schedules or the most difficult positions in the NFL draft. They're trying to create parity. They're trying to raise the bottom and lower the top and make it interesting. They don't want dominant teams. Therefore, based on last year's standings, they weight the schedule more difficult to the better teams and easier for the lesser teams. In college football, I would like to see fair and equitable scheduling. I do not want to see Alabama play a more difficult schedule than Vanderbilt, but I would like to see them play the same schedule. Better example would be Alabama and Oklahoma, because they may be competing for a college football playoff spot. I do not want to see them playing just completely drastic schedules. Alabama played Louisville. That was their big non-conference game out of 4. They played Louisville and they played 4 scrimmage games. Although the last one was a pretty tough scrimmage, 10-10 at halftime. Compare Alabama's non-conference schedule to Pitt's. Alabama played Louisville, the worst team in the ACC, in 3 scrimmage games, and Pitt played Penn State, Notre Dame, Central Florida in a scrimmage game. Albany, I believe. That should not happen. Pitt is playing 3 of the top 10 teams, 10 to 12 teams in the nation, and Alabama's playing like the 100th best team in the nation, and then 3 that aren't even 100th. That would not work under my system. And I have posted videos on my scheduling system for the conferences and scheduling system for non-conference play. Johnny Bays with a whole bunch of comments here. Johnny Bays wants the 4 best by criteria. Simple. I totally agree. Adam, the sports guy, the entire motivator argument renders the result of the game absolutely meaningless. If Georgia wins big, all you will hear is, see, we're one of the best 4 teams in America. And if Texas loses, then you will hear, well, we weren't motivated, so the game means nothing. I believe he means if Georgia loses. And the rest of his comment ensues from there. Okay, we cannot control, Adam, public opinion. And that's is the result of these games, is that people will put the spin on it because of what is the perception by some of bowl games, and that there's a different motivation and various motivations and levels of motivation for each team. Therefore, true, Georgia is decidedly better than Texas based on what we know right now. If Georgia loses the game, people will make excuses for Georgia that they weren't motivated. I will not myself. I cannot control public opinion. That doesn't mean that that's not the case. That could be the case. Georgia could not want to be at the Sugar Bowl and think we are too good to be here. We should be in the playoffs. And they could lay flat for that game and get beat by Texas. And that could be a real factor in the game. But I don't accept it. I will not try to conjecture that that's the case. I cannot measure kids' hearts and minds unless I actually see a kid running down the field for Georgia, chasing a Texas player, and then just kind of saying, you know what, I don't feel like doing that. Unless it's obvious, which it never is to any of us. It can't be obvious that there is a lack of effort. Otherwise, I will not make that. I will not draw that conclusion that this team was motivated, this team was not. Therefore, I can excuse their loss. They're really better than them, but they just didn't prove it on the field because they didn't want to. Well, you know what? Too bad. Then you need to take the hit and the criticism for losing the game, even though you think you're better and everybody thinks you're better, and you can claim we were better, but we just weren't into it. You know what? You should be better than that. There's a competition. You're on the field in a big-time college football setting. And as I mentioned to Ryan during our discussion about this, about sitting out bowl games, take out the cream of the crop in college football. For most of these teams, they will be playing in front of a larger audience on television. The stands might be 90% empty, but they'll be playing in front of a larger audience in these bowl games than they will the entire season. It's because they have exclusivity. Take your college football Saturday, your run-of-the-mill college football Saturday, even though there are certain games that obviously get huge, huge ratings. Even take a game like Alabama-Auburn or Ohio State-Michigan that command that particular time slot, that it seems as though everybody is watching that. When the ratings come out, I look at the ratings the next day or on Monday. Yes, Ohio State, Michigan would crush and did crush in the ratings all of its competition. But that game was on Fox, and between the games on ESPN, ESPN2, ABC, FS1, ESPNU, and then all the regional affiliates, all the regional sports networks out there. If you add it all together, there are still tons of people watching other football games besides Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, whatever the dominant matchup of that particular time window is. My point is that during the bowl games, that hardly ever exists. It exists a little bit on New Year's Eve. It exists a little bit on New Year's Day. There's a slight overlap that might last 30 or 45 minutes. But other than that, all the games starting this Saturday, look at the time windows. They're all exclusive. And if you're a college football fan and you want to be watching college football this Saturday, and from Saturday on, you are going to watch the matchup that's on TV because it's the only one. Therefore, those teams are playing in front of a larger audience. And for as much as people criticize bowl games as not being as being boring or they're insignificant or meaningless, the TV ratings tell us otherwise. And I'm not just talking about the big bowl games. Believe me, the TV ratings for bowl games. Take your biggest regular season college basketball games. Duke, North Carolina, on down, whoever the best teams are this year. I don't follow college basketball, but I have in the past. Take the biggest college basketball games of the regular season, even come conference tournament time. They do not compare to what many people would consider meaningless bowl games with 6-6 and 7-5 teams competing against each other. This is a joke. It's got some hokey sponsor name on it. These teams are 6-6 and 7-5. That game, pick your game, crushes any regular season college basketball game. All right. Shay, Clemson's pass defense is trash. Laugh out loud. The last two teams they played with passing quarterbacks had their big problems. Ian is going to light Clemson up. All right, so he is saying, I thought he was making fun of us talking about Clemson's pass defense having issues. He was actually confirming that. saying that Ian Book is going to light them up if he's not sitting on his rear end. All right. And so there's some back and forth between Notre Dame and Clemson fans. That's good to see. Almost every comment, and I mean 90 some percent of the comments over the past number of days, are coming from people that I have not seen ever comment to Mark Rogers TV. Maybe as I find out on a regular basis, maybe you've been watching for a long time, you just haven't commented. So I appreciate those people out there. Unfortunately, I don't know who they are, but that watch a ton of my videos, but do not comment because there's no way of me knowing. And if that's you, and if you don't care to comment, that's great. I appreciate the view. Hopefully you give us a like as well. And hopefully you share the videos. If you're a Clemson fan and you're fired up about what we said about Clemson's trash defense, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying their defense is trash. Share the video. Send that to your friends on social media. Let them get fired up. Let them jump on and get back to me. Or if you really like the perspective and the opinion that we have on any particular team, topic, game, coaching change, please share the videos. All right, Shay. Oh, he's got a bunch of stats here. I'm not going to read all those stats and bore everyone. I love stats, but I don't think they verbally transfer very well. It's 1:42 Eastern time. I'm going to let everyone know that I'm going to be on for the next 13 to 14 minutes. Then I've got a Georgia segment to cut with Savannah Lee Richardson from Bulldog Illustrated. A dirty rat said that I tried to do my best to give Texas a chance. I do believe Texas is a chance. Although George, long timer here, 20 hours ago, George says Texas has zero chance of winning. I think Texas is a good team, and I give them a 0% chance of winning. And Peter comes back by saying, I give you a 0% of knowing football. Kid, will the Dogs be motivated instead of sitting out for the draft? The nation's best cornerback will play in this game. And I love to see that. Navy Thomas, Texas is going to get buried in caps. And I knew this was going to happen. Somebody was going to call in. This is not a call-in show. All right. We'll have to do that sometime later this week. I am reviewing comments today. So thanks for calling in. Whoever's calling in, please catch up with me later this week. I will be announcing times in which we will be doing live streams. All right. More on Georgia. Paul K says Georgia's going to try to make a statement, keep their foot on the gas for all four quarters. I can see them putting up 60 to 70 points to make a statement. Wow. Aaron Short, Clemson wins big, then loses to Bama big. All right. Again, we are not taking calls today. We are looking at viewer comments, and we only have a few more minutes to do that. Trying to get to the best comments. I especially like the comments. They're just amusing when people obviously tear into me, and you people have been exceedingly kind over the last several days. All right. Although I called out ND football for saying, okay, Syracuse Clemson was the hardest game of the year. Notre Dame is a hell of a lot better than Syracuse. Notre Dame will win this game. Take Notre Dame in the points. Okay. You are emphatically telling us that Notre Dame will win this game. And then ND football, you're telling us take the points. I simply stated here that if you're that confident, you would not take the points because the payoff to take Notre Dame in the money line straight up would pay off a ton more. So take Notre Dame and take the money line play straight up and make a lot more money. If you're that confident, forget the points. This is what I love, back and forth between the Clemson and Notre Dame fans. Michael Morris, big ND fan. I respect the Tigers and their fans more than Bama and OU, that both think they are better than they are. Notre Dame wins because Tigers don't think we can. DS is providing for us the voice of Notre Dame football, the leprechaun. This should be interesting. Son, we, Notre Dame, live in a world that has fans, and those fans and that love have to be guarded by men with heart. Who's going to do it? You? You, Lieutenant? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Saban and you curse the Irish. You have that luxury. Oh my goodness. And it goes on from there. So if you're interested in the poetic soliloquy here from DS, please go to the Clemson Notre Dame video and you can comment. First, read the words from DS talking about honor and loyalty. And the closing line is, otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what power ranking you think you are entitled to. All right. And somebody loves it here. Oren Kroon. DS comes back. Just remember, the better team on paper means nothing. Well, I understand what you're saying, DS. They've got to go play on the field. But the better team typically wins the game. So the better team on paper, whatever that means, we know what it means. The metrics say, the record says, the better team on paper does typically win the game. So yes, I want the teams to go out there and compete. And if one team in particular goes out and proves on that particular day that they are the better team and they earn the win, and that negates what happened on paper, what we expected to play out from paper to field. That's what competition's all about. That's what I want to see. But let's not mistake that the better team on paper typically wins the game, because hint, 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 because somebody mentioned to me the other day, well, if we just go by a resume and if you're just going by this and this and that, why do we even play the games? Just put it all in a computer. Well, okay, back up. I understand what you're saying. That's a good point. But what we have on the paper is based on the team's ability and performance on the field. So we don't have anything on the paper until they actually play on the field. So the better team on paper is typically the better team because they've already proved it 12 times. That doesn't mean they're going to be the better team when the two teams match up. They may lose the game. And of course, those stats aren't perfect. Some of those stats were compiled in early September, and maybe that team's a whole lot better than they were in early September when they struggled. So you should almost weight the stats week to week, but then you would have to consider opponents. So the stats are a basis for an argument. They're a basis to come to a conclusion of who is better and who should win the game, but the stats aren't everything. But I find it funny when people say, well, they're better on paper, but the paper's meaningless. They've got to go play it on the field. Of course, in actuality, yes, they do. But what's on the paper is based on the performance on the field. It's not just made up. We didn't make up that Alabama and Clemson are the dominant teams this year. They went out and performed it, and that translated to the statistics that we put on the paper. All right. A number of people here are running through both Clemson and Notre Dame's schedules. Shea Micah, between Shea Micah and Mr. Tron and DS, thank you for diving into this Notre Dame Clemson game. You guys went to it. Jalil Johnson with probably the best comment of the past 24 hours. Jalil Johnson, thank you so much. He just simply said, I see Mark Rogers and I like. Jalil. JT Bynum. Okay. I think he commented similar to this to me on Facebook. So I'm going to address this idea from JT Bynum. And I appreciate the thought. I give it some value, but it just doesn't work. He states, Mark, what do you think about the idea, since Notre Dame is kind of in the ACC, that for the ACC championship game, in years when one of the ACC division winners is 9-3 or below, and Notre Dame is 10-2 or better, they would replace that division winner in the championship game. I think it's a win-win. The ACC is going to get a better championship game, more TV viewers, and more butts in the seats. And in those years, Notre Dame would benefit from the 13th data point. All right. First of all, Notre Dame didn't need the 13th data point. That would have only subjected them to a loss to Clemson, most likely, and losing and not getting to the college football playoff. So for this particular year, Notre Dame did not need the 13th data point. Now, if Notre Dame would have finished 11-1 and not 12-0, they most likely would have needed a 13th data point to prove that they should be selected. Okay, so that's number one. That's a consideration to be made based on situation for that particular year, whether Notre Dame needs the 13th data point or they don't. They don't just need the 13th data point. It depends on the scenario that year. Okay, here's the issue. You are basically insulting an entire division. You are insulting an entire Coastal Division. I know that the Coastal Division is not good. I know that Pitt, by a number of measurements, did not belong in a conference championship game. But the fact is that the ACC has divided its 14 teams as such, and the Coastal Division has 7 teams. They own half the conference, and Pitt, objectively, this is better than the college football playoff system by far. In an objective way, they played better than everybody else in their division within the conference. Within conference play, Pitt went 6-2. They were the best team in the division. So your first issue here, JT, is you are measuring these teams in the ACC Coastal Division, for example, based on their overall record. Well, Pitt went out and played UCF, Notre Dame, and Penn State. So number one, you were penalizing a better non-conference schedule. So that doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. You need to compare the teams based on what is determined for a division or conference championship. A division and conference championship, as Northwestern and Pitt showed us this season, has nothing to do with what you do outside of the conference. Therefore, you should not be penalized or elevated based on non-conference games. To compare Pitt or any other team in the ACC Coastal Division based on who they played outside the conference doesn't make sense. You're comparing the teams toward a division championship based on what they did against each other. So that's the first flaw in the system. The second flaw is you can't just move a team in and out of a conference based on how good they are or not. And it applies this year, but you are completely insulting North Carolina, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Miami, Georgia Tech, Duke. You are insulting those schools and those teams, and this would never fly. Because number one, you are assuming that this is the worst division. And sure, it has been for 6 or 8 years. This is the worst of the two divisions. The other division has had Clemson for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's had Florida State for the previous 4 or 5 years to dominate the conference. But you're assuming, you're making a rule, and you're basically telling the entire conference and the entire nation, we have an awful division and we have a great division, or at least one great team in a division. Therefore, we're going to come up with this gimmicky rule to bring in an outside team. Let's make no mistake about it. Notre Dame is not part of the ACC. They have signed a contract to play 5 games against the ACC, but they are in no way affiliated with the ACC in football. So we shouldn't gimmick up the system. That would be a complete joke to do that. And it would be a complete assault on ACC football. And I would not be able to shut up in expressing how stupid that is and how unfair it is to half the conference, and how the ACC has made itself out and basically prostituted itself out to Notre Dame to say, we need you, we want you, we've got to come up with a decent championship game. Oh, you're 8-4 this year, forget it. Well, what about the years that Notre Dame's 9-3 under your system? They're 9-3, but Pitt is 7-5. Well, Notre Dame didn't meet the 10-2 criteria. So you're making up a criteria that doesn't, aside from it saying that Notre Dame has to be better than the Coastal Division winner in overall record. Again, that doesn't make sense. That you're basically telling us how much they have to be better than the Coastal Division winner. And what does the Coastal Division winner get? They just won the Coastal Division. Oh, this year, we weren't checking on Notre Dame. Oh, they're good this year. Let's allow them to play. The ACC would be showing themselves to be a complete joke if they made those kind of considerations for a team that has not joined the league. I simply made the point in one of my videos that Notre Dame has joined the ACC in all other athletics, and the ACC should have determined, of course, they're just doing this based on financial considerations. The ACC should have said, no, you are going to join our league in everything or in nothing. That's what they should have said. But the ACC just cares about money, and they just want to schedule some better games in football. And so they allowed Notre Dame to do what they did. I simply said that if Notre Dame was held accountable, like any other institution in America that joins a conference in sports, that they would have had to join in football and therefore not play 5 games, but play a full 8-game schedule and be joined into a division and compete like everybody else. And if that would have happened, then we would have had a Notre Dame Clemson ACC championship game that would have cleared up the Notre Dame issue and not having a 13th data point, and therefore would have possibly knocked out either Notre Dame or Clemson out of the playoff situation and handed that to another conference champion. So we would have had 4 conference champions. And I believe most people would consider and would agree this particular season that even though I want all the conference champions to be involved in the playoff, that this particular year it would be an easy exclusion of Washington with a 3-loss resume to say they do not belong this year under this format. And we would have had 4 conference champions playing in the playoff. We would have had the winner of Notre Dame, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, and we wouldn't have this ridiculous chaos and stupid situation in which we are eliminating worthy conference champions from playing in the playoff. All right, I need to go. So thank you so much. Again, the best way for me to do this would be to review all the comments, but I get about 9,000 per month, so that's difficult to do. Review all the comments, then record a video and put the comments on the screen. When I get some production help, I will do that. For right now, I appreciate you being patient, especially if you called in. You guys know I love the call-in show. I will do that later in the week. You can call in later in the week. And also, I love the live chat. And if there's any comments and questions that were directed toward me in the live chat, please just copy and paste your comment, send it to me in any of the comment sections of any of the videos. And lastly, you're doing holiday shopping, Christmas shopping, please, please, this will benefit you as a college football fan in the long run. Do your Amazon shopping using one of the links in the comments section. If you go to the comments section, the description section under any of the videos, grab one of those Amazon links and just enter Amazon. You don't have to buy the product. Completely disregard the product. Just enter Amazon using one of those links, and you will benefit and support Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We've got Georgia prep coming up for the Sugar Bowl. That to be released sometime today, as well as the voice of college football. Our newsletter is coming out today. I apologize to our many subscribers that we missed a week, But we are coming back strong today with our newsletter, The Voice of College Football. And if you would like to subscribe to our newsletter, it is free as it can be. Nothing. All I need from you is your email address to be sent to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. We will see you soon. More college football previews and predictions coming up later this week.